The start of a new year at university is always an exciting time. New friends, new challenges, and the feeling of freedom are all part of the college experience. However, for some students, this phase of discovery ends in tragedy. Amid the routine of studies and parties, some students vanish without a trace or are found dead under mysterious circumstances. Today, we will explore 3 disturbing cases of young people whose lives were abruptly cut short. Their families still seek answers, and their cases remain shrouded in mystery. Case 1. The disappearance and death of Lucas Rivera. Lucas Rivera was an 18-year-old freshman at Greenstone University in North Carolina. Born and raised in Tampa, Florida, Lucas was a reserved young man passionate about nature and deeply interested in environmental sciences. He had chosen to study far from home to gain independence, but adjusting to the new environment proved more difficult than he had expected. Despite being a dedicated student, Lucas often felt lonely and would frequently call his parents, expressing that the academic pressure was overwhelming. On the night of January 18, 2003, Lucas received a disturbing phone call from a former classmate, James Lockwood. James had a troubled history and was known for his aggressive behavior. During the call, he made strange, ominous statements, as if warning Lucas of something terrible about to happen. Frightened, Lucas called his father, who advised him to stay on campus for safety. Campus security suggested that Lucas block James' number and avoid contact, but no further action was taken. In the days that followed, Lucas tried to go about his routine as usual. However, on the morning of January 23rd, he left to attend a lecture and was never seen again. When his friends noticed he hadn't returned to his dorm, they grew worried. After 2 days with no word from him, his family was notified, and police began their search. His dorm room was tidy, but something was off. His bed was unmade, and a few books were scattered on the floor, which was unusual for someone as organized as Lucas. 6 months later, in the summer of 2003, a fisherman discovered a shoe with a severed foot inside on the banks of Salt Creek, just a few miles from the university. DNA testing confirmed that the foot belonged to Lucas. Over time, small bone fragments and some of his belongings were found in the same area. However, no other parts of his body were ever recovered, and the cause of death remained inconclusive. Investigators turned their attention to James Lockwood, the young man who had made the threatening phone call. He was questioned but insisted it had been nothing more than a bad joke and that he had no intention of harming Lucas. With no concrete evidence, James was never formally charged. Theories about what happened to Lucas vary. Some believe he may have accidentally fallen into the river, while others suspect foul play. Some even argue that Lucas was the victim of something far more sinister, possibly a premeditated crime that was never solved. Lucas' family continues to demand answers, arguing that the university failed to take proper action when he expressed fear. To this day, what truly happened on that January morning remains a mystery. Case 2. The enigmatic death of Amelia Brooks. Amelia Brooks was a 19-year-old political science student at Maple Ridge College in Montreal, Canada. Intelligent, ambitious, and determined, Amelia had big plans for her future. She had moved from Ontario to Montreal to attend a prestigious institution and dreamed of working in international policy. Her future seemed bright, until November 4, 1984, when she mysteriously disappeared. That Friday, Amelia had planned to study alone in her dorm before meeting some friends at a nearby cafe. Around 7 p.m., she sent a message to a friend saying she was finishing a report and would be there in a few minutes. However, Amelia never showed up. In the following days, police initially treated her case as a typical missing persons report, believing she had run away or taken time off. It wasn't until months later, on April 16, 1985, that a hunter discovered her body in a wooded area 30 kilometers outside Montreal. Her body was partially preserved, and investigators found marks on her neck suggesting possible strangulation. However, authorities were quick to suggest that Amelia might have suffered an overdose and that her friends, afraid of being held responsible, could have dumped her body. This theory was strongly disputed by Amelia's family, as toxicology reports found no drugs in her system. Additionally, her purse, rings, and watch were still with her, ruling out a robbery. The case went cold until 2005, when an investigative journalist uncovered eerie connections between Amelia's death and the disappearances of two other women in Montreal during the 1980s. All were young university students found dead under similar circumstances. This raised the chilling possibility that a serial killer had been operating in the area. Despite this new perspective, police never identified a concrete suspect. Amelia Brooks was yet another victim whose fate was sealed without explanation. Her family continues to seek justice, and her case remains one of the most perplexing mysteries in the city. Case 3. The murder of Ava Sinclair. Ava Sinclair was a 22-year-old art student at the University of Southern California. Creative, talented, and full of life, she dreamed of becoming a renowned painter. On November 22, 1972, her life was tragically cut short, right inside the university library. That day, Ava was deeply focused on an academic project. Around 4 p.m., witnesses reported seeing her suddenly collapse as if suffering a medical emergency. When classmates rushed to help her, they initially thought she had fainted. However, when paramedics arrived, they made a chilling discovery. Ava had been stabbed in the chest. The wound had been concealed by her clothing, which is why no one noticed at first. The investigation was extensive, involving over 3,000 interviews. However, little progress was made. Police believed Ava knew her killer, as there were no signs of a struggle. One of the main suspects was her ex-boyfriend, Luke Hendricks, who had been seen near the library at the time of the crime and had a history of obsessive behavior. However, with no concrete evidence, Luke was never charged. Other theories emerged, including the possibility that Ava was the victim of a random attack. Some speculated that she may have discovered something dangerous and was silenced. But with no witnesses and no murder weapon found, the case quickly went cold. Ava Sinclair's murder remains unsolved. Her talent was cut short, and her family never received justice. To this day, people still ask, who killed Ava? The cases of Lucas Rivera, Amelia Brooks, and Ava Sinclair are more than just tragic stories. They are unsettling reminders of how quickly a promising future can be taken away, leaving behind only unanswered questions and families desperate for justice. Their lives were full of potential, their dreams were just beginning to take shape, and yet, they became the protagonists of mysteries that, to this day, remain unsolved. What truly happened to Lucas on that cold January morning? Was he lured into a trap, or did something more sinister befall him? Could Amelia's death be linked to a serial predator that roamed Montreal's streets in the 1980s, preying on young university students? And how did Ava Sinclair, surrounded by students in a library, become the victim of a silent murder that no one saw? These are not just stories. They are real-life nightmares that continue to haunt the families left behind, who wake up every day with the unbearable weight of not knowing the truth. For decades, investigators, journalists, and amateur sleuths have attempted to piece together the puzzles of these cases. Yet, despite the passing years and the evolution of forensic technology, many crucial pieces are still missing. The absence of definitive evidence has allowed speculation and theories to flourish, but without solid answers, justice remains elusive. Were these victims simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, or were they targeted? Did someone close to them betray their trust? And more chillingly, could their killers still be walking free among us? Stories like these serve as cautionary tales, reminding us that life can change in an instant. For students across the world, campuses are meant to be places of growth, discovery, and self-expression. Yet, for some, they became the setting of inexplicable disappearances and violent endings. These cases, and many like them, show that danger can sometimes lurk where we least expect it. As we revisit these mysteries, one thing is clear: someone, somewhere, knows the truth. Whether it's a missing witness, an overlooked piece of evidence, or a person who has kept a dark secret for years, the answers may still be out there. If you or anyone you know has information on any unsolved case, remember that even the smallest detail could be the key to unlocking the truth. Until then, the stories of Lucas, Emilia, and Ava remain open-ended, their fates frozen in time, waiting for justice that may never come. But their names will not be forgotten. Their stories will continue to be told. Because the moment we stop asking questions is the moment these tragedies fade into silence, and silence is the greatest ally of those who wish to keep their crimes buried. Stay vigilant. Stay aware. And as always, take care. See you in the next video.